Welcome to the COSAFA Show with Mark Gleeson and Nick Say.
In this latest episode of the COSAFA Show, we speak to Executive Director Sue Destombes as we reflect on a bumper 2024 for the organization and look ahead to what may be in store in 2025. COSAFA held an unprecedented 9 tournaments last year, 5 of them for women, despite a challenging environment and external factors that were outside of the organization's control. The rewards of this long-term development of men's and women's football at all age group levels can be seen in the record 7 COSAFA sides that have qualified for the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco later this year, and the continued improvement of our women's teams. Destombes outlines the highlights of 2024 on and off the pitch and the ambitious plans of COSAFA for 2025. Thanks, Sue, and all the best to 2025 to you. Thank you for joining us for this first podcast of the year as we reflect back on what was a bumper 12 months for COSAFA in 2024 and look ahead to what we might expect in the coming 12 months. So first off, if we talk about 2024, obviously COSAFA held 9 tournaments, which is the most it ever has. 5 of those for women, if we include the girls' competition in schools, which is also the most for COSAFA, juniors for both under 17s and under 20 boys and girls, a beach soccer tournament as well. I mean, it really was a packed calendar and a great advert for the development of football in the region.
Absolutely, Nick. It certainly was. You said a bumper 12 months, but bearing in mind that those 12 months were kind of compressed. Besides the beach soccer, which was earlier in the year, everything else was then from June to December. So it was a mammoth task, but it was very fulfilling, very constructive. And
just if we talk about the women's tournaments, obviously there's been a desire from FIFA and a desire from CAF to host more women's tournaments. You know, we have, for example, seen the return of the under-20 women's competition for the first time since 2019. Is that definitely a goal to keep these going into the future?
Definitely. The under-20 women had been put aside in 2021 to make room financially for the Women's Champions League, and unfortunately that situation didn't change, which is why we didn't do the under-20 women in those years. But this year we had an opportunity to do so, and we jumped at the chance of bringing it back because it's an important age group. It's an age group which has qualifiers every second year for the FIFA Women's Under-20 World Cup. So there are qualifiers. CAF, of course, doesn't have a continental championship for under-20 women, or at the moment for under-17, although I think that will change shortly. So it's very important for the under-20 players in our region to have a tournament that they can utilize for preparations and just ongoing. It's the continuity, and I think that is why we have seen such big steps having been taken, and an exponential growth in women's football in particular in this region, simply because of the continuity. So if you leave it just even for 1 year, particularly at the junior level, you put yourself back 2 years.
Sorry to interrupt, Nick. Can I ask you then, just on looking back next year, how gratifying was it also to have that record number of teams qualifying for the Cup of Nations? Because, that is, after all, the flagship tournament of African football, and never before will there be as big a Southern African representation as the next edition in Morocco?
Yeah, absolutely. It really was particularly gratifying to us, as a zone, to our leadership, as it must be, for all of our member associations, particularly those are the ones who qualified. But for us as a region, it was gratifying and fulfilling to note that this is what can happen when one does starting from the juniors, continuously. It gets to a point where, not to say that all of the players in all of those teams that qualified, came through the ranks of COSAFA, but certainly, there are a measure of them who have. So it's just fabulous that we've got 7 teams, qualified for next year's AFCON.
And if we also look at the beach soccer, and I know there is perhaps a plan from COSAFA to rotate beach soccer and futsal in the future. Maybe we'll discuss that in a little bit. But if we look at the beach soccer, is also another tournament that's really sort of grown in leaps and bounds over the last few years since its return to the calendar. And obviously, looking ahead now, we have the FIFA Beach Soccer World Cup coming up in Seychelles this year. How important has that tournament been for COSAFA?
Yeah, I think it's been important from the point of view that it adds another string to our bow in terms of different format of games of the game, and it's I think just added something to the brand. It's again kind of highlighted the COSAFA brand, because in the previous 2 editions, being the one played last year and the one in 2022, we had visitors, particularly was it last year's? No, it was the previous one, where we had the qualified teams that were going to the AFCON in Mozambique. So that was great, and the teams used it, as their final preparation. Last year in March, we had Morocco and we had Saudi Arabia. So it's bringing in different teams, with our 11 aside, we've always, from time to time invited invitational teams, as you know, but it's kind of been similar teams for different tournaments. But yeah, we brought in Saudi Arabia, first time ever, from the Asian Confederation, and then Morocco was the first time that they had played ever in a COSAFA tournament. Every time you bring, you do that, you bring a different dimension. Of course, it opens up, it brings different eyeballs, to the COSAFA brand. So it's important from that perspective. Yes, we do want to bring futsal in. I think for this year, it might be better. It's subject to finding a host for the beach, which we're currently working on. And if we can get it right, quickly enough, then we will invite some of the teams that have qualified for the World Cup in the Seychelles.
And do you still see the fundamentals, though, of COSAFA being sort of youth football, age group football? Because I mean, the genesis of the organization certainly was an under-20 tournament, and it's grown rapidly from then. But I mean, at the end of the day, the number of age group tournaments that you have is indicative, I think, of where your fundamentals lie, as it were.
Yeah, if we go back to what our mission statement is, it is to develop football, which is not to say, and we always have used the senior tournaments as developmental as well to an extent, where even in the COSAFA Cup, coaches bring not their A squad, of course, because it's not played on FIFA dates, but they'll bring players that they want to have a look at before the next CHAN or the AFCON, be it qualifiers or final tournament. But I think our focus does remain on our junior tournaments, so under 20 men and women, under 17 girls and boys, and now of course the schools, which is in the under 15 age category, and the under 20, of course, feeding up to the senior men's and women's.
And another one of the great leaps forward, I guess you could say, last year for COSAFA was the further implementation of the video assistant referee system at more tournaments and a greater number of matches. I know that there's plans also to set up a training facility. If you could just talk us through a little bit about that, a little bit about the growth of that and where you see it going in the future.
Yeah, so we're referring to this as our VAR Academy, and we will roll it out in three different ways. First of all, when we have tournaments, if it's a qualifier, and then obviously the senior men and senior women, we will be implementing VAR as we have started. We started with the women actually in October 2023, and then continued it in 2024 at both the COSAFA Cup and again at the women's. But we then introduced it because we had two qualifiers in the under-20 boys category and the under-17 boys category. So we implemented VAR in both of those as well. Good for the game. It is a qualifier, and particularly in the semi-finals, which of course is determining who goes through. One can't be careful enough. If we'd had it, for the women's Champions League as well, that also would have been good. So it's about implementing it, during tournaments. But of course, again, the focus is on developing our referees, both male and female, across our region, to get as many certified as possible and in the shortest possible time, because we've had a number of our VAR referees who had been trained and they've now retired. Johnny Skazwev, as an example, he's now an instructor. And some of our other referees have also retired. So COSAFA has always, played an important role, and we've been, privileged to have been sending so many referees to continental and world tournaments. Now, the focus is on getting them VAR certified, because if you are not, the referees are going to miss out on appointments to your AFCONs and any of the FIFA, the global tournaments. So that's what we're aiming at, and we will do it in different ways. COSAFA has, through our referees department and one or two experts, we have developed a pilot program that even FIFA are asking, and other zones are saying, can we have access to your program? It's a simulation program, so it's ideal as the forerunner. We started the very first one in Malawi when we were there for the Women's Champions League, and it's about getting 30 or 40 referees in a room, so it's in a classroom. You've got monitors and what have you, and it's all simulated. It's simulation. And that provides a very good entree before they get to actually, utilizing the equipment, whether they're in the VAR room or whether they, are on the field of play and are listening to the VAR. And having to check the monitor and whatever. So that is proving to be very successful. So we will be offering that to all of our member associations. That means that we can go to the member association. They bring their referees into a classroom just with a couple of simple monitors. We send the experts to them, and they do that. Step one. We've then got the equipment which CAF generously provided to each of the zonal unions. So we've got our equipment here that we just trying to identify a suitable space, which is affordable, to be able to set up then a kind of a permanent outfit, so referees can come here, so they can bring. Particularly when you've got smaller countries like, the islands, where you've got only 2 or 3 that you're looking at, they can bring their referees here. Each member association can bring those referees here. And then we do a full-on training on the equipment. And then, of course, that is all building up to actually being certified, and so that they can be designated for the tournaments. It's much like flying an aeroplane, going for your pilot's license, where you've got to build up hours So it goes with this VAR as well. And we're on a platform, on a FIFA platform. It's very carefully monitored by the FIFA VAR department. So we're in constant contact with them. They know exactly what we are doing with what referees, who's doing what, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's a 5-day course before the tournament, which counts for your hours, because that is not simulation. That is, it might be offline, but it's using the equipment and on the field of play with players, and then of course going live online for whatever matches we designate.
Can I ask you generally about refereeing in the COSAFA region? Are you happy with the standards? I mean, Southern Africa has had some of the leading referees in the history of African football. You think of Bester Colombo and Frank Veldemarker and Ahmad Saleh ran the line at the World Cup final, Limke Chong, etc. Are you happy that the current crop are going to achieve perhaps the same heights?
I think it's, because we've had, as I say, quite a number who have retired in 2023. So we're kind of in a building, process as well. Again, a rebuilding process. It's also essential to have instructors. So that's another focus of ours, through, together with CAF, is to have more instructors workshops. I think we are fortunate in the VAR department that we do have, a number still who are certified, who've done CAF and FIFA tournaments, and are therefore available to us and are the mentors for the new crop coming through. And then, of course, not everybody's a VAR referee. Not everybody's an AVAR. There is still very much place, obviously, for your referees and your assistant referees, outside of the VAR. And again, we've still got some very good referees, kind of generally across the countries, but Mauritius, Madagascar, those have always been some of our top flighting referees. We've got, of course, Diana from Zambia, who never fails to deliver and to make us very proud, assistant referee from Zambia. So I think, as I say, we're in a regrouping stage, but we can still hold our own and must do, which is why we putting such emphasis on the VAR as well as others to make sure that we don't fall by the wayside in terms of having referees of a correct standard to be designated for continental and global championships.
If we just look ahead to 2025, let's start on the pitch. If we could just get a broad outline of the intended tournaments, and I know we always offer the caveat that some things remain outside of COSAFA's control in terms of the hosting tournaments. But as a sort of a broad look at what the intention is, could you just give us a rundown of that?
Yeah. Well, we first and foremost, we really want to do another beach soccer this year. Because it's very relevant. We've just recently, in November, December, we signed an MOU with the Beach Soccer Worldwide, who approached us because they had seen what we have been doing on the African continent in the beach soccer space. So they approached us and said, they'd like to do an MOU with us where they can provide technical know-how, info on the infrastructure and equipment, as well as training of beach soccer coaches, beach soccer referees. So we will be in touch with them next week to say, right, can they assist us in getting this year's together as quickly as possible? Of course, it does still mean that we've got to find a host, which we are doing, because we don't have Durban at the moment. We're working on that one again, but we also have put it out to Cape Town to see whether they may be interested. Mozambique may have been a possibility, but at the moment it's a wait and see in terms of Mozambique. So beach is in our planning. It's in the planning stage. Then, of course, COSAFA Cup, senior men, the senior women, most definitely, Women's Champions League, yes, and that possibly will go to Zambia. That is a CAF qualifier, so we do need to do it because it is a qualifier. It's the only way that our clubs are going to get to the Continental. And then definitely we are doing under 20 boys and under 20 girls this year. That will be played as part of the Region 5 games, and that will be in Namibia in July. So there's another definite, for the under 20 women, which came back onto our calendar in 2024. So that's great. And then we will definitely be doing the under 17 girls and boys and the schools, which is also girls and boys. So much the same as this year. And just talking about the under 17 girls and boys, when we went into the planning of those two tournaments last year, even though the boys was a qualifier, we were working on 8 teams because that's kind of traditionally what we've had. In fact, we were thinking of the girls. We were pumping for 8, but we would have been happy had we had 6. Well, come October, it was kind of a windfall, but it was also, wow, what the hell do we do now? Because we had 12 teams, which is, unheard of in the junior space. But that has most definitely come about as a result of the strict implementation as from 2023 by FIFA of the FIFA Forward regulation to its national associations, where there are boxes. I'm not saying boxes to be ticked, in other words, just paying lip service, but one has criteria. The national associations have criteria to fulfill, and they've got to do all of the age categories at national team level. So. Some of our member associations, unfortunately, last year when they came to get the second tranche of their FIFA Forward funding, were penalized because they had not fulfilled. So everybody, you can see, even teams, even countries that have traditionally not participated in the girls at all, suddenly were there, and they were the front runners. So that, I know that's where that has come from, but it's fabulous, no matter how it came about.
So these obviously remain incredibly exciting times. We've got a Cup of Nations finals coming up. We've got the World Cup in North America with all those. We've got a really jam-packed year with international football, and COSAFA just keeps growing.
Exactly. And it's as difficult as it is to find times, opportunities to peg like your COSAFA Cup. This year is going to be really difficult to find an opportune time for the COSAFA Cup. Although with the news breaking yesterday that the Chan is now going to be in August, that might give a good opportunity for COSAFA Cup whenever we can peg it to be a preparation for the teams that are going to the Chan. But the juniors as well is not easy. We've got the schools, which is under 15, and then you've got under 17 girls and boys, which is also school learners. So it was a devil's own job to peg those last year. So we will be starting to work on our calendar and the placement of tournaments from next week. But it's very clear that we've got to bring something into the first quarter of the year. 2 things into the first half of the year, and that the juniors, we can't have everything played in December. So, we'll probably be looking at playing the schools in August, and trying to bring under 17 girls maybe into the first half of the year, so that it sits between the second and third rounds of the under 17 FIFA qualifiers, which might also be a good for our teams, and then leaving one in December. So it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, because we've got, we can't just do our own jigsaw puzzle. We have to be mindful of what CAF is doing, and unfortunately CAF, sometimes chopping and changing there. So we might have pegged something and then there's a change there because something has changed, from further up the field with FIFA. So we kind of the last cog in the wheel to do our jigsaw puzzle.
And if we just talk a little bit about off-pitch in 2025, last year we had the COSAFA Awards. You had the Women's Leadership Program, which has been a great success now going for a few other years. You had, I think, a General Secretary's workshop was last year. We had a women's commentator course, first ever, possibly in Africa, that was held. What plans are afoot, so to speak, for 2025?
We've got a lot of capacity building, on our radar. Firstly, with the VAR, as I had mentioned to you, that sits, within its own space, but that is training and capacity building of our referees. Then for where we had done the General Secretary's workshop last year, this year we are planning to do marketing and communications as a workshop. So we'll have the marketing people and we can have the communications people, and we'll do a marketing and communications workshop. We want, on the medical side, we really want to do a workshop. It'll probably be an online one, but maybe not, on nutrition. So looking at the junior players, but not excluding the senior players, of course. But it's got to start at the building, at the foundation of the schools and the under-17s, girls and boys, and focusing on nutrition, which I don't think has ever been done on the continent. I stand to be corrected, and it's really something that one's got to do with local experts, experts from Africa who know the challenges of food, of the food challenges in different countries. They also know the staple diets, etc. So rather than bringing somebody from further afield who doesn't have that integral knowledge, so that's something that we want to do on the medical side, the marketing and communications. We will be continuing with our women's leadership, because, as you say, I think we've done it for 4 years now. We're going into the 5th year. What we also did last year was a club developmental workshop, and that was online. We will break it down this year, so that we'll do one for English, and then we will do a separate one for the French and Portuguese speaking. That also, where we had invited all of our member associations to put forward people who were coming from their leagues and their clubs, administrators, media, marketing, etc. Because I think a lot of work, when we look at some of the challenges that we are faced with in organising our Women's Champions League annually, the clubs that come and where they are, there's a lot of work that needs to be done within the club scenario. So that we will be doing again as well. And then, of course, we had a very successful TSG, a technical study group symposium last year, and we want to do that again this year, because we have now had the full bouquet of tournaments in 2024. So there's going to be a lot of learnings, coming out of that.
That's it for another episode of the COSAFA Show, our first of 2025, and we wish all football fans across the Southern African region a prosperous year ahead. Don't forget, you can listen to more of our podcasts on our YouTube channel, Spotify, and iTunes. You can also get the latest news via our website at www.cosafa.com and on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.